Eric, what's going on? Welcome back to the podcast. How you been, man?
Thanks, man. It's great to be here. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I just, there's a lot of self-reflection during this time, and I don't know how you're handling the pandemic and all the constant news, negative news, kind of like being thrown at you, right? Especially as a creative.
Absolutely.
And yeah, man, I just, for me, I'm always thinking about like my friends and my colleagues, how we, as individuals, we stay creative in the industry and how we kind of, you know, keep busy and, just kind of create and find that inspiration. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you find inspiration? How do you find that creativity during this time, man?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, through lots of different ways. I mean, I really love the sort of the downtime in between projects and whatnot. It sort of gives me time to recoup and restructure and work to build something new and then
Hmm.
present what I've been working on at the end of the process.
Of
It's
course.
sort of funny that with the pandemic, you just you're not really sure when the hell we're going to present anything, so you just
Yeah.
you know,
Anything could really happen, right? Like you never know if you're getting, like for me, I'm getting like those calls where it's like, hey, you want to do a shoot? And it's like, you're on the fence because it's like, do I want that new variant, or do I want that opportunity? You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Um, but I guess it's all about those challenges and how you can overcome them while keeping safe, right? And being smart about them. That's a big thing. But for me, man, like I just getting out there and just scratching that itch. I find the best ways to be creative is, I talk about this all the time on my channel. I started those vlogs, those corner talk vlogs, and I
Right.
started this podcast because not only are they a great way, it's therapeutic. You can talk about, what's going on in your thoughts and, your journey towards whatever creative ambition you're pursuing. It's
Right.
also about, you know, catching up with friends. It's also about, scratching that itch and, just keeping the ball rolling, really. Do you have any like specific things that you're doing, like staying creative, man?
I mean, I always start with the writing. That's a big thing for me.
Okay, great.
Spend a bit of time every day trying to, you write some script or tweak some script or, you know, at least get some sort of outlet through the page at the moment, like because it's so hard to sort of package or know when you can shoot anything these days. I really find the best thing for me to do right now is to just sort of like keep cracking away on scripts.
Right.
So
That's great. No, that's great. That I always admire someone that takes up the courage to look at the blank page and write that script. Because you and I have talked about this before about how hard it is, and
it's a slow road.
it's a slow road, and sometimes we ask ourselves while we're writing, like, why do we even do this to ourselves?
It's true.
Um,
Are you writing a lot or like what
I,
are you?
I'm yeah. So for me, last year, I finished writing I do these things, these feature length screenplays. They're
Right.
kind of like passion projects, and I explain this to you where, and for our audience here, what it is I'm trying to be a filmmaker and like more established, and using the experiences I have on set and my contacts and colleagues, and just building my knowledge. Eventually I want to like tackle those projects, but because they're just kind of like that's why what they are, passion projects, they're kind of projects that I haven't decided yet, like, oh, I'll just sell them. It's kind of something that I still want to be attached to as a director, right? So but I'm aware that to get there, there's a lot more I need to put under my belt, a lot more breadth of experience I need to have, yet. So my point, what I'm trying to get at is, I did finish writing a fourth feature length screenplay. I finished that off last like summer, and I'm really happy about that because I've been putting it off for a whole year, and I just hated, like, it was just sitting there like 30 pages, and I managed to complete another 100 pages. So I was just really happy about that. And a friend of mine, like another colleague, where we're just like tackling some short film projects. Get the portfolio going. Just doing some script doctoring, like fixing
Yeah.
certain scenes and stuff. And it's all a great exercise because it stimulates the mind, right? It gets the creative juices flowing. I don't know about you, but there's sometimes when I have moments where I'm like, wow, like I'm still rusty. You know what I mean? Like I gotta shut off the rust sometimes.
Tell me
But
about
the only way to do it is to get back in it.
Yeah, but you said such an interesting thing there. You were talking about, like, goals and whatnot, right? I think
Mhm.
it's so like important to try and establish, or at least somewhat of a clear vision of where you want to be, hopefully when the pandemic situation comes to an end. And if you can establish that for yourself and then
Yeah.
work backwards to figure out tangible things to help get you towards where you want to be when this ends as much as possible, I think that's a great way to sort of keep your creative juices flowing and keep occupied and busy. You know what I mean?
That's a very interesting point you just said, and I'm happy you said it is. And that's something I kind of argue with. I wouldn't say argue, I just kind of strongly believe and defend the idea where, yes, we need to be safe, and we got to be mindful of our families. My situation and living at home. It's not about you per se, but the loved ones that you can infect. However, I'm always like preparing in the back of my head what's going to happen, because I know eventually, inevitably, everything's just going to stop. Right? This pandemic's just going to stop, and things are just going to gradually move back to normal. And I need to be prepared, or at least have that feeling I did the best I could. You know what I mean? I did all that I could, right? Instead of having that guilty feeling of, oh, I shouldn't have binge watched Netflix for like 2 months. Because it's tempting, man, to just wake up. You know me about my Star Wars. I get into those Star Wars marathons.
Gotta love a Star Wars marathon, buddy.
I finished. I didn't finish. I'm still trying to finish Rogue One. I had to split it up in 2 parts.
Okay.
Really loved
It's a
it
great
from a
movie.
directing. Really loved it from a directing standpoint. I'm sure you can agree, man. Like a lot of interesting shots, like for point of view shots with the starships.
Yeah, I like that movie, man. I think that's a
Yeah,
good one. I
yeah.
like
It was
sort of
like a
where
war action movie, right? Like Saving Private Ryan in space kind of thing. Got the vibe for me. I guess the watching it in IMAX is what did it for me. Like I was glued. Like I was just my eyes were glued to the screen, and can't really get that same effect at home, but nevertheless, right?
it's a good one, man. It's got good character. Well, I mean, the characters are okay, but like I love where it sits in the timeline. I think that's
Mhm.
super cool. The way that they made that movie sort of
Yeah.
in between 3 and 4, and it's just a one-off. Like it just sort of sits there, and I think that's cool.
Well, I absolutely love how they justified with an entire movie why the most lethal weapon in the galaxy has such a weak point. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's basically what that movie is. It's just justifying, like, in case you watch the original and we're like, hey, what,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Like,
And it's
just
like all the
one
cool
cannon.
Star Wars things are in it, like that are
Exactly.
not Jedi,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
that's
Like,
right. Like there's that amazing Darth Vader scene where he just
dude,
unleashes, and then you realize, yo, this ain't 1977 Darth
no, sir.
Vader.
This is like 2017 Darth Vader or whatever it is,
We-
2016.
yeah, we're not to get off topic with what we were discussing before, but like it's just so mind-boggling how, I guess it's just suspension of disbelief. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of watch and accept like these were made in different eras and times. Because if you're watching it, right, like from a narrative perspective, it's like you see Darth Vader just so energetic, so with that villainy. And then the fourth one, like he's still badass. It's just he's not like cutting up people and like throwing them around, and like it's just not as violent. But again, you gotta love it. For me, yeah, that is.
It's amazing.
Anyway, man. But yeah, so we were talking about creativity, and we were talking about the importance of it. And I think I was touching on a point where you said, preparing and having a foundation, when things kind of get back to normal, and you're doing all that you can, right? You said you're doing your writing, and you're, I guess, connecting with people in the industry. Um, how's the writing going? I want to touch on that. Like, are you finding it more difficult because you're indoors? Like, it's not as inspirational or motivational, kind of in between.
Yeah, it's okay, man. I mean, I do find it more challenging, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, just strictly based off the fact that like you always go, well, if only I had the time to write,
Hmm.
then I would write, and then when you have the time to write, it's like, well, I don't want to write. Like that's not, it feels like forever, and you can never seem to like, you sort of, you hold on ideas too long. You know what I mean? I love writing with a deadline, like a lot,
Hmm.
because like if you know it has to be done by that day, your decision making is sort of fluid, and you have to make like sort of concise,
Yeah.
decisions, right? You make a decision and you move on. But when we have all this time, it's sort of like you find yourself pondering on the simplest of
Yeah.
decisions for way too long. What about you? What's your writing like?
Same concept is, I love that you just said that, where if you have a deadline, or I wouldn't even say a firm deadline, something where you're just owing a friend, or you kind of just being accountable of one another, because let's be honest, a lot of this is collaboration. You
Absolutely.
want to, you psychologically, you just push yourself, you're just always getting up. I remember just before the end of last year, a buddy of mine, he has not one, but two projects we want to film, and just short film, nothing crazy, 5 pages, whatever. But he wanted me to have a look at them. And, I offered if I can, touch up a few points. And again, even just touching up those points, maybe if I didn't have a deadline, I probably would take me a little bit more time than
Right.
necessary.
Right.
But knowing that I had a friend that, was entrusting me to do this and wants to collaborate, you want to be professional as much as you can be, right? And you want to just simply owe your friend back and say, hey, like I'm your time is just as precious as my time. So definitely, I would encourage that. But I have to say, with writing, and something I kind of give advice to anyone is, wake up in the morning. For me, I do it first thing in the morning, around 8 o'clock, and I just tell myself 3 pages. I tell myself 3 pages. I don't know what's going to come out in 3 pages. Could be good, bad, needs to be even deleted the next day. But when I notice when I write those 3 pages, and I tell myself that's it. People will write until they're done writing. I used to hate that because it worked for me. There were times when I would just write like 10 pages, but the days that I couldn't get 10 pages, I would be very hard on myself, right? And you can also lead into a burnout, and your ideas can get very constricted. So I find 3 pages just a great way to just get your ideas across, get the ideas formulating, but you don't get to the point when you completely burn out and put that, because of that much pressure you put on yourself. Do you have like some sort of like strategy you do, or just kind of off the cuff, like apply
I
your?
love that idea for sure.
Yeah.
The concept of having sort of giving yourself a daily
Hmm.
quota
Yeah.
of pages, but like something manageable. I love that. I mean, I think that's great. So I sometimes with scripts I go by week a little bit,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So it might be like I need to get, 20 pages done this week. So, so whatever that math ends up being, you do a little bit more one day, a little bit less on another,
That's an
whatever.
important
As long
point. If you have yeah, if you have definitely a timeline, like for me, that's more like creative and just getting inspired. I follow
right.
the 3 page principle, but but when it comes to, like, yeah, if you're definitely, because you've been in more serious situations probably where you have to have a certain amount of pages done, or even the whole thing. So you definitely can't do the 3 pages. But whether it's 3 pages, 5 pages, 1 page, one paragraph, one line, the fact that you're showing up to that page and you stare down that white page, the blank page,
Absolutely.
it's the scariest thing. But the fact that you have that bravery, like, people might listening to this aren't familiar with writing, could laugh and say, I don't know what these guys are talking about. But
Yeah.
I encourage you, if you don't know what you're talking about, give it a try. Tomorrow, I dare you to write just a page off the top of your mind, like a compelling story, something that you're reading in your head and saying to yourselves, will the audience enjoy it? You could get really caught up. And I always joke around with my friends and I say, I don't mind writer's block. Like, writer's block, whatever happens, I feel like I can get out of it. I'm pretty confident in that. It's writing yourself in a corner. That's the scariest thing. Right, when you're in a corner and you're just saying to yourself, how can this character get out of this situation, or how can I have this scene happen, or how does a set be, how do these things work without jumping the shark, right?
It's true.
And yeah, so I'm glad we agree on that when it comes to writing. And I'm glad to hear that you're writing, because I know that's a very difficult avenue, right? But we always talk about this, and that writing is the most important thing you need. Sound is after, but writing the story. I still remember when I was at Toronto International Film Festival, I was doing those Q&As, and someone raised their hand, roughly our age, and said, hey, I just like to know, like, what does it take to be a filmmaker, like, or a director at the very least, like, what can I do? And he says, are you listening? And he goes, you need to learn how to write a story. And everyone's looking at you like, what? We were expecting, like, you pick up a camera, get buddy buddy with the editor, I don't know. And the fact that he said that, he said, if you look at any great filmmaker, they know how a story is constructed, they know how to construct one themselves, and they know how to execute it.
Well, that's
And
such a great
that,
point, dude,
right,
because I'm huge. Like I would consider myself in general not a talented writer. So
right.
all my writing comes from like thoroughly structuring out what I'm going to do before I start,
Hmm.
right? So like outlining, figuring out, the whole structure of my film, from, figuring out all the acts, breaking them down, like with 3-act structure, whatever you're doing, 5-act structure, like figuring out exactly structurally how your film goes together and
Absolutely.
getting that on paper before you start on that blank page is so important for me. And I spend a lot of time doing that. My room is sort of like a conspiracy theorist's room. It's got those big like boards with,
With
like
the red lines
cue
or
cards
with
and
the
cue
yarn and
cards
all
and
that stuff.
lines. And I'm like, you know what I mean?
I
Like,
love that. I love that. You get down in there, you get in there, and that's what you got
for
to
the
do.
job, man. It's
Yeah,
fun.
it's part of the job, man. You don't mind getting your fingers dirty, and that's what it takes, right? And I'm glad you said that, because you see, you don't have to be an Aaron Sorkin, right? You don't have to be a Tarantino on the level of writing, but the fact that you took an interest, or you dedicated yourself enough to learn how to construct a story, again, how to tackle a story when it comes to being on another position on set, you're familiar that you're just aware what makes a good movie. And I feel like there's a lot of movies now today, the reason why people forget, they think it's CGI, they think it's, a bad director, but what they don't realize is that it all starts from the story. I'm not blaming the script writer. I'm talking about the story, like the essence, the core. The reason why Star Wars resonates with me and is in my heart and resonates with so many millions of people is because, yes, the movies have their problems. Yes, fans don't agree, but the story is there. And whether you agree or disagree, you even said it, right? You're not the biggest Star Wars fan, but there's a story to it. There's something to it that everyone kind of goes back to. I always bring up the Star Wars Episode 3, right? It has a lot of problems. A lot of filmmakers will say, "How could you like that?" But for me, there's a story there. Like, I like the idea that there was tragedy. There's that the fall to the dark side, and the whole movie just felt like really depressing in a way, like the tone of it. And again, there's lines where you might cringe. There's lines where you might smirk, but the essence, the story behind it, the fact that the fall from grace is something that touches me in a different way. Inspires me in a different way. So I guess when we're talking about all these tips and how to stay creative and all our creative projects, what kind of advice would you give, like, filmmakers out there, man, like us, just kind of struggling, or maybe finding some issues, getting keeping their head up?
Yeah, I mean, I find the biggest thing is like it's about figuring out where you want to be
Mm,
at the end. That's the big thing for me, is like really figuring out where I want to be when this is over.
right.
You know, like I find like a visualization and really trying to understand, like, and get a thorough understanding of where you would like to be at the end of the pandemic
Mhm.
is like one of the biggest and most important things for me. Because if you know that, then you can sort of take that and work your way backwards and get, okay, I want to have directed one short film, by the end of the pandemic. Okay,
Right.
I have these resources. Then you can work your way back and go, okay, what needs to happen
Exactly.
today is this in order to execute my goal. And I can get creative with that leading, you know, to my ultimate goal at the end of the process, right?
Right. Right.
So I find like the big thing like is trying to figure out like clearly define what your goals are and then working your way back so you can take sort of tangible steps towards them and be creative every single day and know what you're being creative for so you have sort of purpose, right?
Yeah, and would you say you visualize? Is there a lot of visualization in your goals? Like, do you actually picture yourself there? Because that's a big thing for me. I actually imagine myself, like you said, like directing a short film before the end of the year. Like, I picture me on set working with the people that are interested, connecting. Would you say, yeah,
Absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, I think
absolutely.
visualization is so essential. And it's like
Hmm.
once you establish that visual in your mind, and
Right.
I think this is similar for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but
Hmm.
once you sort of establish that and you become really clear on what you're trying to do, the universe will get out of your way. If you start taking steps towards that, things will start to happen and you'll start to move. It might not
Right.
be the pace or how you expect it to happen, but you'll start moving in that direction. If you know what that direction is and you start taking tangible steps towards it, you're slowly making your way there. And I feel like that's so important.
Yeah, the hardest step for me, I always tell people, is showing up. And I'm sure you can agree, is people say, well, that's easy, but it's not, in a way. And when I say showing up, I don't even mean physically, I mean mentally. Like, when you have to write a script, for instance, you make it in your schedule that at 8 o'clock I will wake up and sit myself in the chair and open the laptop and start. A lot of people will put it off and say, no, 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 I'm going to do it later, or I'm not feeling it today. But in your heart you're just scared, right? And it's normal to be scared. And I've I've gone through a lot of fear. Have yet to experience more fear, right? Depending on new obstacles, new challenges that I encounter. And you could say the same for yourself, right? There's always going to be changing tides, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's important, yeah, to for sure, like to definitely visualize and to set goals and to kind of imagine where you want to be for sure at the end of the pandemic. I really like that point, and that's something that again that resonates with me a lot. I've this is an important time, but it's also a critical time for a lot of people to take advantage of the fact that we have that downtime, we have that quiet time to do self reflection.
Absolutely.
And again, as a creative, it's the best time. Like this is the time when you just catch up on all those creative projects you want to do, or just like you said, bang out a script if you have to. Um, do you find days where you're maybe discouraged, or you know,
Oh, yeah. Are you
doesn't, yeah,
kidding me?
right, yeah.
It's the worst. Like how regimented would you say you are in your like day? Is it like is are like you get up at a certain time and get going and you have this and this, or is it sort of like I get up, and I'll sort of get going and you sort of feel out the days as they come? Like how regimented are you in your approach?
So I'm glad you asked that. I have a pretty regimented time schedule, and that's because I create one for myself because I like to stay organized. But it's very it always has the basics and then filled in with things that I really want to do, if that makes sense. So even if it's like a crappy day or a day like I don't want to do anything the next day, kind of like I don't really have anything in mind or nothing's really happening, especially with the pandemic. It's always like the essentials: exercise, read, meditate, draw, like like do something creative, and that's pretty much it. Now that's like a very basic day, like there's just nothing going on, but I always do those things. As I explained in my vlogs, it's very important to have a morning routine or a routine in general. Very important to have some sort of structure.
Right.
I don't care, creatives, they try to use that excuse like, oh, I don't need structure in my life, but you do, you're a human being. And especially when you grow up, you're an adult, you're a man or woman, and you need to have that structure. You need to have some sort of accountability, or else nothing will get done. And I found that it's discipline, right, at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm not a robot. There are days when I do those things. Maybe I
Right.
can half-ass the exercise, maybe I even skip it altogether. I'll let you guys know. But for the most part, I like the idea that I have some sort of schedule that I look to, right? It keeps me sane, especially in a time when, like you said, you can easily just wake up and do whatever you want. Or when I was talking about binging Netflix for 2 months, it's very tempting. There are days, I want to talk to you, about the Queen's Gambit soon. That's something that I did. I just said, I'm hooked on the show. Like that's when you know it's a good show. You just got to binge watch it.
Gotta
I want to know
yeah.
your thoughts. But back to the scheduling. Like, do you have the same vibe? Like, is it structured, or you just kind of like off the cuff?
Yeah, when I'm in my most productive state, it's incredibly regimented and
Okay,
structured.
perfect. Right.
You'll notice as you brought up, do you have off days? Do you have like those days? Yep, and those are the days that there's no structure.
Yep.
But when the structure's there, that's when I feel at my best and the most productive, and when I really do achieve sort of what I'm
Hmm.
looking for.
That's great, man. Yeah, I'm glad you agree also that, as an artist, creative, whatever have you, you need that structure, you need that organization. Would you call yourself like a pretty organized individual? Like you can't, you need everything in line, right? Like, or to a certain degree.
From
Um,
a work standpoint, I
from a
would,
work standpoint,
yeah,
right? Yeah. Yeah.
I would say
Especially
I'm
when you're managing a whole bunch of different projects. For me, that's a new thing that I need to, not that I, find it a huge challenge, but it's something new, like to balance, your your timetable and different appointments that come through, people reaching out, you're just kind of coordinating and, writing it into your schedule. I got this, you can't see it, but I got this big ass, huge schedule timetable thing that's like February, and these squares are like, you know, just writing down all my points. Because I'm a very visual person, man. Like I like to see like what's the month, what do I have ahead of.
love it, dude. I
Are
love
you
it.
are you a visual guy? Are you a visual guy?
Yeah, I'd say I'm auditory the most, but I do love a
Oh, okay.
visual. Like I have printed out some calendars and I have some things. And
Yeah.
nothing like a good whiteboard map out of what you're trying to do.
Yo, okay. You just
That's
reminded me.
for
I gotta
sure.
pick one. No, no, I'm serious. I've been meaning to treat myself for Christmas. I was gonna get myself a whiteboard. So I'm gonna get
Do
that.
it, dude.
I'm gonna get that. Yeah, I'm gonna get it
Do it.
right behind me, and I'm gonna write
Right.
my thoughts. You know those YouTube videos where they're like, "You want to make money in 6 months," and then they show you like, "Are you tired of being a loser?"
94 points from 94 production.
Exactly. There you go. Can
I
you
love
imagine I create 94 pieces of content? It's like that's it.
That's it,
94
man. You like
productions. What
Quentin,
you
you
thought it was a
know?
play on words?
Yeah.
94 productions. That's it.
I love it, dude.
Um, but
It's
yeah,
a-
so I guess what I wanted to say last is speaking of creativity and just being inspired, like what sort of content? Because I know we have similar tastes. Is there anything that you recently watched or anything people should keep their eyes out to get maybe inspired or just shut off their brain?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious answer is I was wildly behind on the Mandalorian.
Oh yes, you were.
Throwing it
Yeah,
back to the
that's
Star
right.
Wars,
Yes,
and I finally caught up, thank goodness. And
yes,
oh man, was that a season finale for season two? It was, yeah. That's what been watching recently, and
that's
really
great,
been
man.
fun.
How far are you? Like, I don't want to spoil anything,
And
but
I finished. I finished.
oh, you finished it. Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah,
so we're not gonna spoil it for anyone, but um, is it a nice departure from what we've been getting with Star Wars, or you just kind of used to it? Like everything's kind of well done.
I dug it, man. I
Yeah,
dug it. It was a
yeah.
lot of fun. A lot of
It was a
fun.
different vibe for sure. For me, it was. It took a while for me to get into it. I'll be honest, especially the first season. But then even like season two, like it was like right at one after the other. Like it just picked up, and I'm looking forward to what else they can do with the series. Is there any certain character, by the way, like Star Wars, you want to see? Like, are you excited for that Kenobi series or?
Yeah, I think the Kenobi series will be cool.
Yeah.
I know they sort of teased the Boba Fett thing at the
Oh
end.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's not really a spoiler. You can find it all over the internet. They've been trying to do it before the Mandalorian. They're just trying to get that Black Series action figure out as soon as they can.
So what about you, dude? Is it Queen's Gambit for you, or what are you
Yes.
watching for?
So yes.
Fuck Queen's
So
Gambit.
so I don't know. So sometimes like when I watch like certain pieces of film or television, I actually think of like friends or colleagues like who would appreciate it or really enjoy it. And I don't know why. When I was watching Queen's Gambit, I'm like, this is like something Eric would watch and enjoy. Am I
Well,
am I dead on the money on
you're
that?
dead on. But you know what's so funny
Okay.
about that Queen's
Yeah.
Gambit?
Yeah.
So you remember in the last podcast episode we had, I was telling you about that film that I shot in Cambridge.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
We used all the locations from the Queen's Gambit, like the
Are you
street where
kidding?
the house is on, where
Oh,
the
that must
girl
be
is.
so amazing to watch and like say, wow, I was right there.
Well, it was incredible, but it was like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
shot that, and then like 2 weeks later, Queen's Gambit came out, and we all watched it, and we were like, "Well, what the hell? We were just
That's
shooting it,
insane.
you
Wow.
know?
That's great to hear.
It's
Wow.
pretty
That's really
cool."
interesting. Yeah. Um,
Toronto production. Did you know
so is
that?
it, so I was just going to say Toronto, that means it's a Toronto production.
It's all around here, dude.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's insane, man. And they shot it all in one city. Like they didn't move. It was just all shot in Toronto,
all around the GTA.
the
Like,
GTA and stuff.
yeah, man.
Did they shoot in Vaughan or anything or Markham? No,
I don't know, man. I'm sure
no,
they
no,
did.
no.
I know
But
that
you,
they shot in
but they shot
Cambridge,
around. Oh, okay, okay.
and they shot a lot of stuff in Cambridge because it sort of looks sort of older. But they were shooting downtown, and I think they were up at Cinespace on 77 Kipling in Etobicoke. I think that's the studio where they were shooting a lot of that stuff. But yeah,
But
man.
did they do a lot of like touch ups or renovations like with the houses? Like, does it look like as you see it in when you last were on that location? Like,
Yeah,
pretty like yeah,
looks similar. I know that some of the interiors of the houses are sets, but
yeah. Okay,
it's very similar to what it looks like. Like if you went out there with the first episode, second episode, you'd be like, oh my goodness, this is this and this is
wow,
this.
that's amazing, man. That
Yeah.
must be surreal to watch. Like, I was just there. Like, I could have been, I could have brushed your shoulder right there. That's crazy. Did the show make you want to play chess or what?
Well, I can remember, it's so funny. I was working last summer,
Right, right.
and I was like, I was working on Saw, and I was at
Yeah,
the same studio, and I was like, oh,
yeah.
what's this thing? And they were like, Queen's Gambit, and I was like, what's that? And they were like, it's a chess show. And I was like, screw that. That sounds complicated.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then it came out, and I watched, and I was like, I got to learn how to play chess. That's where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
at, man. I was like, yeah, I was like deeply inspired. What about you? Like, were you into
Yeah,
chess?
no. Why I always actually always loved chess,
Oh, did you?
and I didn't. I watched I always enjoy those behind the scenes, like the director talking, like how he made it or why he
Right.
made it, all that stuff. And he was saying the hardest part for him was making chess appear cinematic, like,
I bet.
you know what I mean, like a badass sport.
Can you imagine how complicated it is to shoot a chess scene?
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. Like you watch it, and but this is the mastery, right? And something we always say again is you play off the emotions. It's not the logic of the game; it's the emotions, right? So they were explaining that a lot of the shots were focused on the face, like close up, so it's like claustrophobic, like the intensity. You see them moving, itching, and it's very brief. Even when they show the chessboard, it's not like they show like they do like some cool stylized edits here and there, but I appreciated that they made it very cinematic, and I think that would be definitely a huge challenge. But again, this is not about like with Rocky. It's not about boxing. It's about the characters, about the story, right? And that's what transcends it. That's what puts it on a different category. So for me, that's why I enjoyed it. That's what pulled to me. I know there's some friends that weren't didn't really gravitate to it as
Right.
much. Really, like didn't enjoy it as much. I guess maybe the whole concept of chess or just the way things were working out. But yeah, I guess the performance is what really stood out for me. Believe her name is what, Anya Taylor. I remember her from Split.
Yeah,
She always
she's
had like
great.
this, yeah, she always had this like kind of eerie like look to her, like something with, you know, attractive, but you know what I'm talking about? Like it's just like a otherworldly. Again, she fits the like when she gives those stares, it's like yeah, like you can tell this person's like really smart or cunning or about to like rip your throat out through a chess game or something.
Yeah, she's
So
incredibly captivating. You can't really keep your
yeah,
eyes off,
great casting choice. Though I'm trying to say, yeah, great
you know?
casting choice. Yeah,
Yes, she's great.
the who else was good? Um, the Watts guy wasn't bad. I didn't mind him. I liked his character, like his cocky, like you know, he kind of gave it to her at the end, like you know, just said like
Yeah.
stuck it to her. But I don't know. Did you find it funny or like kind of distracting a bit when he's wearing the hat and the leather jacket? Like I just thought it was too costume me, if that makes sense. Like it just
It's
I'm
definitely
wearing a
pushing the
costume.
style game a bit, you know?
Yeah, right. Like I don't know. It just didn't fit him, and I didn't know if that was because that was his character.
Yeah.
You know, like I get that was his character, but you get my point. It's like they just I don't know. Maybe they could lose the hat. I don't know. Something about it was off to me. I'm being picky.
It's all about story and character, my friend.
But it's all about, but the thing is again, that's attributed to great writing, great directing, right? The I don't even care. Like that's just nitpicking to me, right? Like that character was memorable. The main actress, the character, all those guys that help her at the end, even the twins. You know what I mean? That thought she was ahead of herself, wanting to compete with the guys.
Mhm.
They were memorable as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really interesting show. Recommended for people to watch, and that is crazy. What a small world, as they would say, that you filmed on the location of that. Is this film in post production that you've done, or oh, so it's
Yeah.
still not being released, right?
It's
It
not
still
being
hasn't been
released.
released.
Not yet. There'll probably be some promotion out for it soon. I'll
Nice.
be sure to let you know. But yeah, it's in post production. We shot it in November, so it's looking good.
So as time, yeah, as we do more of these, we'll definitely like keep our audience updated if they're interested in this project, and get you some exposure too. I want you know them to see your work and what you're, you know, is this the musical vibe one, the one that
Yeah,
I saw?
it
Yeah,
is.
okay,
The
okay,
one we talked about. Yeah,
yeah, okay, perfect. I'm now I got to see it because it's like not, you know, I'm curious about your work, but I got to see if I find those locations and say, hey, you stole my buddy's stole my buddy's
they got there first, unfortunately, but
they go, oh, they filmed before you?
they filmed before us. Yeah, they
Oh,
released
okay,
it
okay,
right
okay.
after we filmed there, right?
Right.
So they filmed like a year ago there, but it's
Did you
cool.
physically cross paths or no? Like that would make sense. Like, did you see them like on location? No, that'd be interesting. Because you've had some work though. Like I have to say, I was when I was adding you on Instagram there, I saw some of your posts, and you were with J.J. Abrams, and you
It was
met
a fish. Yeah, that's true.
the late Anton Yelchin.
The late Anton Yelchin, a sweet
Yeah,
guy, man. Really sweet guy.
yeah,
Really.
no, I can imagine. He just it's I don't even like I don't even know how to describe that situation because he's close to my age, right? I'm
Absolutely.
26. He died at what, 28? Similar to
Yeah,
like Heath Ledger, right?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, horrible. But it just proves to you that you never know when our time is, and you just gotta take one day at a time and enjoy the present, right?
Absolutely.
enjoy what you do.
Absolutely.
Anything memorable about these interactions with these people? Like
About Anton
Anton
Yelchin,
or JJ or anything? Like any they say
both
anything like keep the dream alive, kid?
they're both really, really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice to me, man. Anton Yelchin was such a sweet guy. Very sort of quiet individual,
Reserved, yeah.
you know, but like really sweet. You could just tell he's a sweet guy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
Very,
know.
very modest, very humble, right? Like he wasn't full of himself kind of thing.
And when I was in LA, I went to visit the cemetery where
Oh
he
wow.
buried at Hollywood Forever,
Oh wow.
big
Okay.
statue. So I went and stopped by there, which I thought was it was kind of sad, but it was, nice to sort of pay your respects in a sense too,
Well, he definitely like, touched your heart. Like you had that interaction and it was a personal moment for you. And that's I'm sure he also was like happy to, spend the time with you too, right? Like you get a lot of celebrities that they're just like rush, 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 or they ignore you completely. One thing that comes to mind is back in 2013, I went to the Rush premiere for TIFF,
Okay.
and I didn't get in because these tickets sell out in a minute. But I did go for the red carpet because I was just curious what the hype was all about. And Chris Hemsworth was the only cast member and the only one celebrity worthy, I should say, like that came and like to us and started signing everyone's books, notepads, posters, greeted people, said hi, and I just thought that was so impressive. Because I'm not, I was up until that point, I wasn't used to seeing a celebrity go out of their way like that. It was always like from a distance, you like zoom in with the lens, like just to get a shot. And this guy literally came right towards us and was just happy to see us. And again, that's just smart marketing. Like this guy, he's in a big franchise. He wants people to know who he is. But I think you could just tell by his body language, like back to like Anton Yelchin, like sweet guy, like just humble, down to earth. But everyone else went inside. Everyone else, didn't even like, they kind of waved to us and then went inside. I don't know if they were late, the show was starting, but this guy, man,
Right.
literally went up and down, up and down, up and down. And
So you
he's
got
the
the good
lead.
vibes, from Chris Hemsworth?
No, really good vibes, man. It's a story that really sticks out to me. I tell it to people all the time because I thought that was really cool what he did. He doesn't play a cool person, like he actually is a cool person in real life. So that's really rare. A lot of the times these actors, right, they play a persona. So he
I see.
actually was like, I look at those things and I don't know where my journey is going to take me, but I always tell myself if I were to be in that position, I would do the same
Right.
because we make them that big, right? We make them make the millions of dollars, you know?
Absolutely.
It's the audience that matters. So yeah, before we go though, I do have to mention you're wearing a badass Alcatraz hoodie. And
That
I
I
went to San Francisco and I actually visited Alcatraz. So I want to know, like, did you get it from your visit or
I
yeah?
did. I did get it
Nice,
from the
nice.
visit, dude.
Okay,
Yeah.
dope. Tell
What
us
was your
about it.
experience there? Was it crazy? Like it's
So
so
okay,
creepy, isn't it?
okay. So I might have lied a bit. I didn't go inside because
Okay.
I took this boat cruise ride that just kind of went around it.
Went around
But
it.
it was enough for me where it's like I got the vibe. I wanted to go in, it just didn't fit my schedule.
Absolutely.
But things were just broken and like I don't know, it just got a creepy vibe. And I'm saying, yeah, like no, this is when you get sent to Alcatraz, that's the end of the line, right? Um, the jail
Yeah.
cells I heard are like half the size of my room, maybe even smaller. You know what I mean? Like they're very tight. Would you say that?
It's pretty horrific. Yeah. They're really
Yeah.
tight, really dark. Just there's no hope in that place. It's horror. And it's so cold and
And they would always say like 1 hour. They would only get 1 hour a day out in the. Did they mention that to you guys? Isn't that
yeah,
crazy? Like I processed that. I'm like, that's messed up. Like we take for granted like being outside, and even before the pandemic, just the fact that we could just get outside and have fresh air. You even said it, like go out with your buddies, grab a drink, and the fact that they only get to go outside for an hour, can't fathom that at all.
it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
So, is there anything that they said that was like memorable, like any historical? Because I always love those facts. I'm a huge geek with that. Did they ever find the
Um
guys that escaped?
well, that was part of the thing. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
an interesting whether or not those guys really got away or what sort of happened to them or all that.
Hmm.
They had sort of preserved some of that stuff from that escape attempt. So it was pretty cool. I think they might have had like the hole in the wall still sort of and things like that,
Oh
like
wow.
because I think they chipped, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken, they chipped
Hmm.
away at a stone like with a spoon for months or
They
something.
did, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Like watered it or something, yeah, moistened it. It was incredible, but also, yeah,
like
Cam,
crazy stuff. And I'm like, I love Al Capone, and Al Capone was there for a bit, and like
did he die? He didn't die there, right? He got transferred?
I don't think he died there, no, but he sort of
No.
went a bit crazy in there.
Oh, he
So
did, eh?
yeah, there was all kinds of sort of really famous, like I think it was like Machine Gun Kelly and some of these other like really famous sort of
Yeah.
horrific people were at that prison, and it's creepy, man.
Yeah, these hardened criminals that that um, spent their time there for sure. It would make any man crazy, really. That place, but it made an impression on you. That's why you got that hoodie. I love it.
I got the hoodie, but I'm gonna
Contrast
buy.
cyclewear.
Buddy, I'm gonna purchase a 94 Productions hoodie.
Oh, thank you,
That's
man.
what's
You're too
coming.
kind. You're too kind.
It's
Thank you.
coming out. It's a huge
It's
volume.
yeah. So for the audience, thanks Eric for mentioning it. I through my company 94 Productions, I started this brand called 94 Collections clothing line, and it's just to celebrate streetwear. I'm a huge fan of hoodies and crew necks and t-shirts alike and motivational quotes. So with this pandemic, with hopefully things will settle down more and more, I plan to get more marketing. You know what I mean? Photo shoots. I think we talked, not to put you on the spot, but we talked about you doing a photo shoot once, right?
I would love
You
to do a
never.
photo shoot, dude.
Yeah, that's right. When things obviously get better, but
Yeah,
I don't want Eric to be like, I prefer the being the director. But no, I know you're a good sport for that, and we definitely yeah, we got to make a put in our schedule one day to get a photo shoot going. And yeah, check it out, guys. I'll talk about it more on my podcast, and you can see it on my channel on YouTube. I wear them in my videos, and there's a whole bunch of there's an array of colors. That's a little bit of my sister's genius. She's like,
yeah,
if you're gonna do it, don't put black and gray. Like, put some fun colors that people can
right.
wear. Right? I'm gonna rock the pink hoodie one
Are
day.
you?
Like, I'm already telling you right now. I got the long hair for it. I can wear a hat. You know what I mean? Got the toque, or I should say beanie, for all those French Canadians that are not. No, because I say toque, right? I tell people I'm wearing a toque, and some people are actually confused. And I
So how did
realize,
you come
wow.
up with the quotes for the hoodies? Like, which ones did you put and why did you put them on them? Like,
Okay, so for the quotes with the hoodies, I put "Keep the dream alive, leave behind a legacy, and only the beginning." I also have another one that I really didn't put into market yet, but it's gonna come in once hopefully things pick up. Is called No Formula. So I'll go through each one. Keep the dream alive is, talk to any one of my friends, family. I always say that, and it's just something that I just love the ring to it, and it's just something I really live by. Is you're gonna have your days when it's not gonna come true, or you feel like it's not gonna come true. I should say you're gonna have your days where I've experienced that I just wouldn't be able to pursue. I couldn't pursue my dream, and I don't know. It's just so many life just happens, right? And there's so many obstacles. But in my heart, I always believe the dream is alive. The dream will happen for me. I just gotta keep pressing. And when I say keep the dream alive, I mean no matter what situation you're in, the pandemic, you're in a writer's block. When you say those words to yourself, when you remind yourself the dream is still alive, or you're gonna keep the dream alive, it motivates the hell out of you. And it's kind of like a fun remark to say to friends, like people in the industry, like yourself, like all in the chat, like keep the dream alive. You know, people know exactly what they mean. It doesn't mean filmmaking for them. It could mean something else, like becoming a chef, right? Just keep the dream alive. You know what I mean? Like keep it happening. Just like when people say keep smiling, it's something. It's like a positive remark. So that's why I plan to have expressed through these pieces of clothing, and when people wear it, it's a representation of that.
right,
Leave behind a legacy. Same concept as for me. Filmmaking is a huge um, dream of mine since I was a little boy. Films is all that I'm obsessed with. But this whole notion of a legacy is no matter what you do, make it be remembered by it. Be remembered for it. When you pass on, what will you leave behind, right? And it doesn't have to be something grand like my ambitions, like filmmaking and history and Tarantino level style. But what will your family remember you for? What will your friends, right? So leave behind a legacy is, again, another positive statement. No matter what's happening, do it to the best of your ability, never half-ass it. And only
right.
the beginning is pretty much, another motivational quote where it's only the beginning. Exactly what it says is, when I've had moments where I've never gotten into a festival, I've had moments where I really didn't think I would be able to connect with anyone in the film industry before I met you, before I met a lot of great talented friends and colleagues. I knew no one, and I just had this passion. And to see myself, speaking of progression, like we were discussing last, to see myself go through this journey and encounter such great people, like-minded people, I remind myself it's only the beginning. You know what I mean? It's only the beginning, that we're only getting started.
Right.
And even with this interaction right now, like it's only the beginning. All the projects that we have in mind or you have in mind for me and vice versa, the 94 collection, like I always tell myself that, because it's a fun, again, it's a fun, quippy kind of remark. You tell people, you tell your friends, but you mean it. There's meaning behind it, where it's like, we're only getting started, and it's to get people pumped. And when I say all three lines to people, it works, and people like smile. And they always say, that's right. And my friends I've caught, whether they're in real estate, whether they're in construction, they
Right.
use the remark to me. And I'm like, you see how it resonates? So
Yeah.
I'm glad that I know you've mentioned keep the dream alive a few times when we've had our phone calls. So I'm really happy that it has a place with you, and that's the intention, man, to spread the word through this merchandise, right? And once things get back up and running, or I'm able to, like, get back out there and get my models at work, it should be a lot of fun, man. It should be a lot of fun. Always an itch, always a way to be creative, you know.
It's
That's what I
amazing,
try to
dude.
do, man. Yeah. So thank you for bringing it up. Thank you for mentioning it. Check it out, guys. It was a pleasure talking to you like always, man, and I'm looking forward to the next one. If you have
My
anything to
pleasure.
say, I'll let the audience know. If
Yeah, no, it's been great, man. I appreciate it. Just, keep plugging away,
Yeah,
stay creative, keep try and stay motivated, and really try and figure out, what your end goal for when the pandemic is over is, so you can sort of, work towards that as best possible.
exactly. And if you don't have an angle, at least do something every day that keeps you sane. I don't. I hate, and it breaks my heart to see people go into a depression or feel helpless. And I know everyone has a different circumstance. And again, I'll say it again, I'm very privileged in the circumstance that I'm in, with the roof over my head, food on the table. I don't know other people's situation. But if you can just find something, it doesn't have to be, you know, starting a business. It doesn't have to be a dream like filmmaking. But if it's just something that makes you happy, picking up a book and just reading instead of watching TV, it could do wonders for you. So that's something I highly recommend. So on that note, I want to thank you again, Eric, for joining, and I'm looking forward to our next podcast. Uh, Thanks again, guys, for listening in, and we'll talk soon. Okay,
See you soon.
take care.